Hello dear students, how are you? I hope you all are doing well. So again we are here with a new chapter of science, body movements. So let's start. What body movement is? So before going to start with the chapter, let us see what we are going to discuss in this chapter. So here in this chapter we'll discuss about the introduction, various human body movements, different types of joints like ball and socket joint, hinge joint, pivotal joint, fixed joint. Then we'll discuss about the skeletal system, which consists of bones, cartilage and muscles. And we'll discuss various types of movement in other animals like earthworm, snail, cockroach, birds and fish, snake, etc. So let us start with the introduction part. My question is, when body moves, what will happen? So before going to answer this, let me show you some movements of our body and some movements that we show or observe during our day-to-day activities. Let us see the first action. Can you see what is this? The blinking of eyes. Yes, it is one of the movements that we generally observe. So let us see another body movement, and here let's see what is this. A person is writing something, so movement of the fingers, that is one of the movement. Let's move. Next, can you see how the fingers and thumb show the movement? So this is another body movement. Let's move further. Normal walking. We generally walk, run, jump, playing. This is again a movement. So I think now you understand what movement is. Let us see another movement. The jogging in the morning walk, running, playing in the garden. All these are the movements of different body parts and sometimes the whole body organism. So this is running and the jogging. Let's move further. And here I'm having a beautiful clip, that is skipping. So in this, a person is skipping rope, and that also shows the movement of body, especially the movement of leg. Let's move further. Yes, let us discuss about this thing. So when we talk about the skipping, writing, painting, even cooking, and when you are playing in computer, studying in computer, your finger movement, all these are movements. So what movement is? When I talk about movement, it is nothing but the act of moving. Moving, either your hand is moving or fingers are moving, or your whole body is moving while running or while skipping or while playing. So movement is nothing but the act of moving. So when you move from your home to garden or home to school, that is again a movement. But that movement is when you are taking complete body, that means movement or the change in position of one organism from one place to another. That is again a movement. So it causes change in position or change in posture. When we talk about the movement, if we consider this is a bus which is moving, which is going, and if we move in the direction of bus, we can easily come out from the bus. But if we try to go in opposite direction, we may fall down. So sometimes we need to consider and keep in mind the movement, how a person has to move, in what direction it has to follow, so that it goes in a proper direction. So while coming out of the bus, you should come in the same direction as the bus moves and slowly. So otherwise what will happen? You may fall down. So we have just discussed what movements are, what type of movements we observe, we see in our surroundings, and even our body does. Now my question is, what is the difference between movement and locomotion? So when we talk about locomotion, it is basically the change in position of an individual from one place to another. Like you move from your home to school or from home to your garden, or to your friend's place. So this is locomotion, as it shows some change in the position. Whereas the movement may be the change in position, may not be. It may be some change in posture also. So generally when we talk about plants, they show movement rather locomotion, because plants are rigid, they do not move from one place to another. They show movement only, like leaves can move, like touch me not plant shows its leaves. So this is the basic difference between movement and locomotion. Let's move further and we'll discuss about various body organs for movement. So let us see. You must have seen the movement of tiger in TV or somewhere in the zoo also. You must have seen the movement of frog. Are these two movements same? No. So they have different type of movement. Similarly, fish, snake, bird, even lizard, they all show different type of movement. So let me ask you one thing, that how do animals move from place to place? So I have given some examples and I have taken some animals like cow. So first thing is, what body part is used by the cow to move from one place to another? That is legs, definitely. Cow moves by legs. And how does animal move? Just by walking. So this cow move by walking. Now if I ask you, what about human beings? You and me. Yes, we have legs for movement, for locomotion, and we can move by walking, running, and there are other ways you can learn. You can even move by skipping also. So let us move to another animal, and that is a snake. So when we see the movement of snake, we see that the whole body is responsible for the movement of snake, and we call this movement as slither movement. We'll discuss that movement in detail. Tell me, this is how does animal move? So for snake, we call it as slither movement. Birds. Yes, you must have seen birds. They fly. So body part used for the movement, especially for birds, wings, and the muscles of birds, the breast muscles, the wing muscles, the muscles of the tail, they all are responsible for their movement. And how does animal move? They move flying. Insect, they also have wings and they move flying, and even they walk also using their leg movements. Fish. Fish is an aquatic animal, so it remains in water and it moves by swimming. That means, how does this fish move? Swimming. And what body part it is using? Fish use fins and the body muscles for movement, for swimming. Is it interesting? So see some more animals around you and try to find out what are the organs they are using for their movement and what we call their movement is. Let's move further. So now the fun time, the activity time. To see and observe the body movement, let us do one interesting thing. What you do is just tie your hand this way so that you cannot fold your hand. Let's see. You cannot fold your hand. It's only you can move it up and down. Let's see this case. The hand is not tight and the movement is easy. That means you can easily fold your hand. So, why this is so? Because we have restricted the movement just by tying our hand with this piece of wood. Okay? Let's move further. So, let us see another example. Touch me not plant. What will happen when you touch the leaves of these plants? Their leaves drop down. So that is a movement shown by the leaves of touch me not plant. So when we talk about joints, what joints are? Basically, we consider joint is a point of contact that is between the bone and the cartilage. So joint basically is one important thing that is responsible for body movement. When we talk about Joint, it includes muscles, bones and joints. These three are responsible for movement. And we have various types of joints. And different examples are elbow, shoulder, neck joints, wrist joints. So what type of joints they are, let us discuss in detail. We have basically three types of joints: fibrous joint, cartilaginous joint and synovial joint. What are these joints? So when we talk about the fibrous joint, we generally call fibrous joint as the fixed joint. They do not allow movement. That means they are fixed. That means they are immovable. So when we talk about skull, a skull cannot show any type of movement. When I rotate my head, it's only the movement I can show, I can see, I can observe here. That means at my neck portion. When I speak, I can feel the movement in my lower jaw. But my skull does not show any movement. So I can say that this is fixed joint, this is fibrous joint, though it is immovable. Another example is cranium, upper jaw. So why they do not show any movement? The thing is, they do not have any joint gap or cavity between these bones, and thus they are fixed joints. So these are fibrous joints. So basically they do not allow any movement. That means they are immovable. Let's see. This is an example of skull, and skull, this cranium basically is fibrous joint or fixed joint. That means they are immovable and no any movement is shown in this case. So that is fibrous joint. So next we'll move is cartilaginous joint. So in this cartilaginous joint, we'll discuss what type of movement we observe. So in cartilaginous joint, we observe the limited movement of the bone, and the bones are joined by cartilages, and thus we call them as cartilaginous movement. And the good example is vertebral column, and the small movement is observed or little movement is observed in this case because we have small cavity between the two. So that we call as cartilaginous joint. Let's move further and move to the third type of joint, that is synovial joint. So in this synovial joint, we have observed that the considerable movement is allowed because a good amount of fluid has been filled in between that cavity or between two bones. Let us discuss the example, and examples are the limb joints, the knee joints. That means a good movement is there and we can move our hands, our arm very easily. So that is the synovial joint. So in this synovial joint, we have various categories, like we have ball and socket joint, we have pivot joint, we have hinge joint. So let us discuss one by one. First we have is ball and socket joint. So in this case, we can see that from this diagram, we are having a socket or a cup-shaped depression or arrangement in which a ball-like structure gets fixed. So that we call it as ball and socket joint. And this ball and socket joint is observed or is found in our shoulders as well as hip joints. So that is ball and socket. How it moves? There is a socket in which ball is there. So movement of this ball allows the movement of bones and thus body movement. So very good examples are shoulders and hip joints. So let us see with the help of picture how this ball and socket joint will work. So let's see. So here I am having a ball that fixed into this socket, or I can say it as bowl, and it is connected with some cylinder or the bone. So during the movement, what will happen? This ball rotate around this socket and this shows the body movement. So this is one of the very interesting feature about ball and socket joint, that the ball will fix in the socket. So let's move further to the pivotal joint. In this pivot joint, we have different examples like our neck and head. They can move around the axis. That means if I would like to rotate my head, I can rotate left or right. That means it is the movement or the arrangement that passes along the axis, but I cannot rotate my head through 360-degree. That means I have a restricted movement. I can rotate either one side direction or two side, that means around an axis, but cannot rotate throughout my neck, right? So that is pivotal joint. So pivotal joint can move only around the axis. So we have seen the movement. This is the axis where the head can move either this side or that side. So this type of movement we call it as pivotal joint. Let's move further and we'll move to another type of joint, that is hinge joint. Hinge basically we observe in the case of door. When we open or close the door, the socket that in which the door has been fixed to the wall, we call that as hinge. So the same type of joint we observe in our body. So as the door can open and close in one direction, similarly there are some body joints that can go only in one direction. Like I can rotate my hand in this direction, I cannot bend my hand on the other side, right? So that is hinge joint. So this is hinge joint where the body movement can go only in one direction, just like the hinges of the door. So that is hinge joint. And the examples are this elbow movement. Our elbow movement can show only the back and forth movement, cannot rotate on the other side. Similarly, when you bend your knees, that is also hinge joint. So these are examples of hinge joint. So the elbow is one of the examples. Similarly, when we bend our knees, the knee joint is also an example. Let's see the picture. So that is the movement of knee only in one direction. That means you cannot bend in the other direction. So that is also hinge joint. So these are very good examples of hinge joint, the elbow as well as the knee. So let us talk about the skeletal system in detail. So what skeletal system is? The very first thing is it forms the framework of our body and it consists of bones, cartilages and joints. So can you see this skeletal system? Yes, this is the basic framework of our body on which now we are having, it provides support. It provides support to our body. Without skeletal system, we cannot even stand erect. So this skeletal system, the presence of bones and cartilages and joints are necessary for our movement as well as for our existence. So very important thing is we say skeletal system as a framework and it is absolutely correct. Let's move further. Might be you have seen the X-ray image. Let us discuss this X-ray image. What is this? This shows the arrangement of various bones. Basically, we use X-ray to find out any deformity in the bones or during any fracture that where this dislocation or fracture has been observed in the bones. So if we observe this X-ray image, we observe that these lines actually are showing the bones. So these are somewhat hard and rigid. The X-ray for the bones can be shown like this. So let me tell you, what is the importance of a skeletal system? Why this is important? What is the significance? So very important thing is, as I said, it is the framework of body. It gives us some protection to our soft and internal structure of body. Like skull or the cranium, that is very important to protect our very soft organ of the brain. Similarly, it gives us support. And very important, it is necessary for the movement and it provides attachment points for muscles. So for movement also, the skeletal system plays a very significant role. Do you know in an adult there are 206 bones? Then how many bones are present in a newborn baby? Amazed to hear that, but they are more than 206. Nearly I can say around 300 bones are present in newborn baby. Then what will happen to these bones when the baby grow younger? What will happen? These smaller bones join to form a bigger bone and thus they decrease in number, and finally when it changes into adult, we have 206 bones. Interesting?
To watch the complete video, download the Upbind educational app from Play Store and App Store.